Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Nuggets News. We are back with our regular crypto segment. I hope you all had a great break. Crypto's been chopping around, but how was your break, Michael?
Yeah, it was good to kind of tune out for a little bit. Not a whole lot happened over the break in the market, so it was good to be able to get a bit of a rest and have a good Christmas and watch some cricket. It was good.
Yeah, absolutely. And in previous years, it's kind of been that like week leading up to Christmas where we've seen like the market top or some flash crashes. But I think we were kind of talking about that. We just felt like it was going to chop around, not do much. So it was good to tune out for a bit, but we'll get back into all that today.
Yeah, um, can you see my screen?
No, if you can share screen and we'll
Yeah,
go
I'll
from there.
share screen real quickly. So I know that the markets have kind of been a little bit temperamental in the regards that not many people have known which way we're about to go. You can kind of see this. We've just had a little bit of a flash crash this morning. I don't really see any significant reason why this has taken place besides that there may have been a bit of a long squeeze in place. And if you've been looking at fear and greed and sort of general sentiment, not many people know whether or not we're going up, down, whether the 4 year cycle is intact, whether it's, we're about to enter a bear market or whether or not, now we're about to see alt season. It's pretty uncertain, I'd say, at the moment. And anecdotally, I was speaking with a mate the other day who said that he didn't know anybody who was deploying fresh capital into crypto. People were just sort of rotating money around. So
Yeah.
uncertain times at the moment.
And I think it just shows you that the liquidity never really fully covered from that huge crash we had whenever 1010, whatever it was. But, some of these moves for no real reason. And Monero is a good example there when it got up to $800 a couple of weeks ago and then down, 30% this week and 40% in a couple of weeks of, a
Yeah.
narrative kind of taking hold. And then it just doesn't have that legs and no sustainability. So it's kind of a trader's market at the moment and still not a lot of liquidity, which affects things both up and down.
Yeah, the pumps don't seem strong. I know I played around on the ETH trade a little bit. Any single time I see sub 3K ETH, I love to gobble. But by the time it got up to 3.3, I thought this doesn't feel strong, and sort of got out again. And so there's a little trade there, but I think it's just we've got a lot of instability at the moment, and obviously Iran is the big one right now. Like it does seem like the regime is going to hold on over there. It doesn't seem like there's going to be any form of kinetic involvement from the US, like in the immediate future. That could change, you never know. But I don't think that this is going to pump the markets with the regime staying in place like it might have if there was regime change. So it's a very uncertain one for the market there.
It's a very complicated situation, as I did my video on yesterday all about.
Yeah. And again, even like the most ardent Trump supporters, I think, are fairly uncertain about what to take of the Greenland situation. Obviously, if you just America sort of setup, you probably love the American empire expansion, but it does seem odd and strange that like we're going to buy a country regardless of whether you like it or not. So I don't know how people are going to take this, and I think the more this plays out, like obviously it doesn't work well for Europe and tariffs and uncertainty, and this is what's sort of like leading risk assets to sort of not have the same sort of robustness like we would like to see. And Bitcoin and crypto are still being treated like a risk asset.
Yeah, I mean, having said that, we think all our data still looks pretty good and it's going to be a good year. But at the moment, it's just kind of chopping around and resetting time.
Yeah, I think we need to shake out the last few people who are adamant that we're into a drastic bear market. Like everyone's sort of like wanting to trade and wanting to be bullish, but still kind of half like having their, you know, letting go of the last sort of cycle, whether or not it's going to actually sort of sell off. So we just need sort of the confidence to ensure that we're not going to go into an 80% drop, and then I think we'll be okay.
Yeah.
Um, the big one at the moment in the US is obviously the Clarity Act, and so this has been something that's been on the table for quite some time. This is the big piece of legislation that we've wanted to see pass, and obviously the US has turned quite more bullish with the SEC is not sort of trying to sue people and shut them down by enforcement. But this is what would give absolute clarity, obviously, the name. But there's a whole bunch of nasty stuff that was snuck into the version of the bill, including like regulating DeFi and requiring KYC for front end developers and things like that, which led to Coinbase themselves withdrawing their support, which is significant because they're the leaders of the crypto lobby over in the US.
Yeah. And a
Um,
lot of the stuff in that bill kind of put the power back towards CBDCs from away from more decentralized stablecoins that could pay yield in the DeFi world. And again, it's kind of giving power to banks in the TradFi world rather than the crypto world.
Yeah. And obviously, if you're a trader, then you don't really care like about, who's the good guy and who's the bad guy. You're just looking for opportunity. If you're more, cypherpunk or a freedom lover, you are looking for I guess an ethos or a moral that you're wanting to stand by. And so, like for me, I'm a bit of a purist here. Like I like the idea of decentralization. I like the idea that crypto can be used for, for good in the world, and that we can actually use these tools for freedom. But essentially, we do see, Wall Street is becoming a major part of this ecosystem now, which is, it makes things uncertain.
Yeah, 100%.
So on that, obviously Charles Hoskinson, he's ripped into Ripple because they seem to be the one who still want to support the bill here. And so I've been pretty oblivious or removed from the XRP ecosystem. It's not something that I really jumped on. I wasn't part of the XRP army, even though anyone who is has done very well. So congrats to you guys. But it does seem odd that they're all for this. They're all for, the current format of the bill. Like I do think you can see people's true colors a little bit when it comes to it's great for regulation for thee, but not for me type sort of thing. How this plays out.
Yeah, I mean, if the criticism was, it's kind of the banking coin and more centralized, and by saying that they're in favor of all these regulations that are in favor of the banks and in favor of centralization, then you kind of, you got to, if you make your bed, you got to line it too.
Absolutely. And so we'll see how this plays out, but I don't think the bill passes without, Coinbase's support. So let's see if it can come back and they can rejig something here. Scott Bessent is still saying that, they're going to be moving towards buying Bitcoin and the Bitcoin reserve. So I think they're still trying to keep the Bitcoiners happy. But this is now becoming hyper political because of how involved the crypto is into the economy. And so it does mean number go up, but I do think that there's a fight on our hands to see who's going to control our crypto assets specifically. And you can see probably from some of these inflows of opportunity right now that it doesn't really seem like there's a whole lot of yield opportunities. And this is a metric that I track because I live my life off of a Bitcoin standard. And so I try and put everything that I have into crypto and then use, Aave or debt to sort of pay my bills. And you can always see how hot the market is by what the yields are. And right now, there's not a whole lot of yield on stable coins, which is meaning not many people are trying to lever up to borrow. But when things get hot and when they get really hot, you can see that some of these yields go up to 20-something% or 15% or things like that. And right now, you can't see anywhere that's 5 or more than 5. So this for me is always a market that I always follow.
It's pretty much fallen in line with bank deposit yield rates, which is kind of scary. And it also highlights to me the underutilization of DeFi. Just people aren't using it because as demand goes up, that kind of yield goes up.
If you can safely stick your stable coins into Aave or Jupiter or whatever your platform is and make 15%, 14%, 12%, like you regularly can when the market is bullish, it's a really, really powerful tool. But you can see, right now, not a whole lot of borrowing power going on.
Yeah.
Moving on, this is a metric that I track right now because I think we say this every cycle that if you're going to focus on smart contract layers, everyone always says this is the cycle that ETH is going to get flipped, and it never happens. And so I firmly believe that it will not happen until we're proven otherwise. And so tracking now some of these chains that exist on top of Ethereum who have their own ecosystems in their own right, Arbitrum is showing some real strength at the moment. It is the biggest blockchain after ETH mainnet. And so you can see by total value locked, nearly $17.5 billion in their own right. And there's huge amounts of RWA activity that's happening on Arbitrum right now. And that's only going to shoot off, especially shortly as Robinhood launches their own Arbitrum stack chain. And so that's coming. And then that'll lead to a whole bunch of stocks coming on chain as well. So when stocks start acting like and can be traded like crypto, that's also going to only be bullish. I guess probably for Ethereum initially because it's all ETH gas. and ETH usage, and as ETH gets entwined with normal stock trading. But Base is the big one as well that we've got to watch, because there still is a lot of speculation around a Base token coming. So for those that haven't played around with it, the Base app just got upgraded, and in most countries you can now download the Base app, and it is completely different from their normal Coinbase app that they had before. There's a whole bunch of feature sets in there, and I can imagine that this is going to be a precursor to them really wanting to pump that ecosystem in and of itself. So there's kind of different flavors of Ethereum right now. And so we're watching this space, because I can see that the second that any form of an announcement of a Base token gets announced, I could see that Coinbase ecosystem really, really popping. So I think that's probably the next catalyst that I'm watching for, is an announcement of some sort of Base token.
Yeah, no, obviously try and time that with when they feel like the market's going to heat up. There's no point launching it now when nothing too much is happening. But I think everything you've touched on there with the ETH ecosystem, I know you want to share some of your personal experience, which is kind of something we've thought about, all these layer ones and proof of stake just been so hard to sustain long term. And is there going to be a pivot back towards ETH and decentralization and the main chains? And I know you can't say too much, but talk us through what's been happening in your world.
Yeah, so I started out in Ethereum. That was my first entry into crypto, and that was 17 when I joined the Nuggets news community, to be honest. And so at that stage, the only way you could scale Ethereum was there was the early stages of Polygon. And so Polygon wasn't actually really even an L2. It was just a side chain at that point with a promise that they would one day be secured by Ethereum, or it was Binance Smart Chain. And so Polkadot was the big catalyst here for that multi-chain universe. And Polkadot was the first real place where you could have, that shared security with a multi-chain ecosystem. And we can see that Ethereum has pivoted more towards being that Polkadot model. And just over Christmas, the one big fireworks thing that happened is that Polkadot went the other direction. So everyone knows Polkadot as the pink multi-chain, parachain type sort of setup. Well, over Christmas, everything went dark on the Polkadot website. They removed all their color scheme, and they effectively shut down anything that wasn't the main Polkadot brand. And they're actually sort of moving towards becoming sort of a Solana-esque monolithic chain. So the whole new Polkadot tech stack is being developed, and they've completely pivoted right away from being, I guess, the host of a multi-chain ecosystem to this will be the one super monolithic chain where everything gets built on this one layer. Now, we'll talk about this more in the coming weeks, whether or not this is going to be a reality and people will use this as an alternative to Ethereum. But when you track now, they've effectively swapped positions, they've swapped roles. And now Ethereum is the base layer host for all of the multi-chain universe, and Polkadot's gone the other way. So I know there's a lot of heated discussion right now in the Polkadot ecosystem and the thought processes around what the Web3 Foundation is doing here. But very, very interesting to see, because the tech is very solid, but whether users are going to come and now want to build on another monolithic chain, this will be a very interesting one coming up. And so we'll talk more in coming weeks. I'm tracking this because I've obviously got a bit of skin in the game here. But yeah, watch this space, because that's going to get spicy. That's going to be spicy, that one.
Yeah, and I guess for me, it's like this longer term trend of, are we going to see like everything monetary be built out on Bitcoin DeFi? And are we going to see everything, tech and internet based and whatever, be built out on Ethereum and the subnets? So
Yep.
That would be that pendulum swing that I've been talking about coming back for the past year or two.
I just think you just need to actually have your ethos in check. Being a trader is one thing and trading tokens, but if you're here because you're here for decentralization, some of these things matter, and some of the decisions of these ecosystems matter as well. And so look at who's talking about privacy and who's talking about decentralization, because I think you can see people not by what they say but what they do. And it's how we need to base our decisions moving forward, I think, when we're trying to keep our freedoms and the monetary system free.
Awesome. And again, that's the kind of research we'll be focusing more on this year as well, guys. So you can head over to the website for the free newsletter for all our premium research or our high net worth VIP services. And Michael, we'll see you again next week. Cheers.